Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, dear listeners. This is Comeza Radio Africa, the voice of Comeza, the organization everybody wants to be associated with. The mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. That is our philosophy. It's about the plugged mind, an active mind, sharing mind, futuristic mind, and inquiring mind. The journey is about enthusiastically promoting our ideas, giving as we learn, retaining and investing our learnings, and searching for new opportunities. When the destiny is achieved, is designated by productivity and profitability, social responsibility and caring, growth and sustainability, and renewal and survival. We inform and entertain, we develop and educate, we empower and support, we associate and network. That is the idea. We are a business and professional management services 24/7 internet streaming radio station. We broadcast music and talk shows across the world. Our objective is to use the African storytelling and Lekgotla conversation methodology in offering career coaching, education and learning guidance, continuous professional development, enterprise and entrepreneurship development, and connecting supply to demand. Our talk shows aim to affirm and support business professionals and entrepreneurs in their personal and professional journey of bringing a difference to the world. These are talk shows that recognize excellence and greatness. Professionals and entrepreneurs are invited as a recognition of the great contribution they are making to humanity. We have a network of associates, members and stakeholders who know our quality standards and therefore make recommendations to our production team. The conversations become lifelong account of our guests' work since they are recorded on Spreaker Studio, distributed on Comeza Africa Podcast, Spreaker Podcast, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and many other platforms to be added. We are building a solid ecosystem of professionals and entrepreneurs committed to the empowerment of others, collaboration across sectors, sharing of insights and knowledge, building a base for succession and inheritance, and safeguarding the legacies for generations after us. We inherited these legacies from our forefathers and mothers, not to waste them, but to pass them on to generations after us. That is our duty and our responsibility. My name is Sam Zima. I am the CEO and Executive Business Coach at Comeza GOC International. You may visit our website, www.comeza-goc.com. The same principles that govern our organizations are the principles that govern our radio broadcast, which are win-win approach, holistic mindset, competency development, demanding accountability from each one of us, ethical inclusive practice, and progressive transformation. You may become a member of Comeza Friends and Supporters Club, NPO. That can be done online at www.comezaclub.africa, and then, of course, become part of this initiative of inspiring our fellow professionals and entrepreneurs to continue being socially responsible. You are welcome to write to us at callcenter@comeza-goc.com. Let me at this time welcome my brother Ntate Tau.
Greetings, Mr. Sam. I'm very much great. Yourself?
I'm doing very well. I'm very happy to have you on the other side, because I know that media is your home.
pleased as well, Daddy.
The other day, I had a talk with a fellow coach, Esme Vetboy, and I was saying to her that, we must be careful that we don't become selfish. It's not about you and I as coaches. It's about our listeners.
Yes.
I think I may say the same to you now. That it's not about you and I as media specialists. It's about our listeners.
Very true, very true.
And please, if I overindulge, bring me to others so that I don't forget that it's not about me.
I will definitely do that because I also want my piece of pie.
Absolutely. We use this Lekgotla methodology exactly for that reason, because one of the principles of our Lekgotla, which is a traditional practice that Africans have always done, is that you need to be mindful of the others. Don't overindulge.
Very true.
You and I, you're going to tell me where we met before you were recommended to us, because when I was trying to file your details on my phone, then I found out that I already have you on my contact. And it stays there, Sakumzi.
Now, it was also staggering when Mr. Dana gave me your contact, man. I see this logo on my stack of business cards because I keep very key business cards and there are generic ones.
Yes.
But now, because I have a very good photographic memory, I know I have this business card. Now, I went through my important cards. Here's this card. How did I meet this person?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to connect or where exactly, but I know it must have been a very long time, but I'm trying to connect the dots, but I'm failing. So, what's a mistake? Mr. Gibiti, how do I know, Mr. Sam? Because in my mind, we've even had a conversation.
Yes.
If it was at Sakumzi, perhaps it was a conference that we hosted, perhaps in one of his establishments, because I'm also coached by Mr. Sakumzi. So maybe in one of our engagements, Leah and I said mentee, then I was able to meet you there. But I can't recall properly. But I do have your business card here on my collection.
Yeah. Did you not participate at the Dr. Richard Mabonya entrepreneurship conference at UJ?
I've done a lot of those. I've attended a lot of those at UJ.
And there was a time where we then decided, let's go into Soweto with some of the guests and have some meals.
Oh, yes. You have a very good memory. I feel very much embarrassed now. I feel very much embarrassed at my age. How can I forget that? Yes, I remember very well. It was an entourage of professionals, and then we went out on a drive, and we had a meal called the Sakumzi. No, I recall.
Yes. It didn't happen very quickly for me. I took a long time, and then I recalled that, that must have been that time.
Now I remember we even had a conversation because I have your card with.
Yes. Wonderful. Yeah. Things are meant to be that way. And I'm glad now that we reconnected, thanks to Ndate Kivit in Sumailo. And of course, Ndate Lawrence Cheche spoke very highly of you.
That's a very good friend of mine. Ndate Kivit and I are touring with coaching as young entrepreneurs as well. So as we continue with the talk, I speak very profoundly of mentorship, the importance of mentorship. We get that a lot of our young entrepreneurs, they run away from mentorship. But no, we don't want knowledge from the old crocs. But they tend to forget that knowledge is quite rich. And that's the very knowledge we need in order for us to survive the hardships of business. So I love mentorship by that you can imagine. So Mr. Nchumailo Kianan is a guide on how to run some of the things in business. So Lawrence and we are still standing even today as well through coaching and mentorship, and we are able to recoup and face all the business struggles that come our way. Not Kyalebuhan, that I do appreciate it.
Beautiful. Mahlakwama so I am a For those who don't understand the Sotho Spedi, basically it means that you lean on the old ones as a young one.
Unfortunately, when I introduce myself in my clan intro, I won't have to explain anything. I won't be explaining my clan introduction. Anyone who's listening will have to go out and search what that actually means.
Wonderful. That is a way of checking in, but body, mind, spirit, everything in balance in that.
I'm very much aligned in that.
Beautiful. It's very important for us to always remember that we are not just a piece of meat. We are made of spirit, and we have the mind, and the three must be balanced for us to function very well.
Yes, we would have done a big mistake to disconnect those. We are very much one thing that has elements that form this one thing called the flesh. If you detach the spirit from this flesh, you have done a very big mistake, because there is no human in that form.
Absolutely. And God has been amazing the way He has created us. As a coach, I work a lot with clients, and I work a lot on the mind, the power of the mind. And I always said that if early in my education, I was taught how to learn, because how to learn is basically just to understand how does the mind absorb information and knowledge and keep it and retrieve it.
That's a very powerful tool. Everything rises and falls in that tool. If the mind is compromised, you are doomed. If you understand the mechanics of the mind, then you're going very far in this life.
Beautiful. Let's start by just telling our listeners who is this Lesego Tau that is spoken so highly of, that was recommended and had to be called very quickly. If you listen to my talk with Lawrence Gege, I did say to him that he needs to give you the message that I'm coming for you. I'm glad I got you. I said, man, from what I hear, that man is an asset. The nation needs to hear him, We are here building the nation, and we're using the story that is real. And because he is a young star, the young people will be challenged, and I'm sure they will be changed after our talk.
Let's do hope that the great force of this life will make use of my content to reach out.
Who is it that Lesego Tau? Where did you grow up? Where were you born? And what did you grow up doing? And what is it about this young life that we need to hear?
Now, you are asking about the name Lesego Tau. Now, that is just identity.
Yes.
But now we need to know who is the person, because name and surname is identity.
Yes.
Let's speak about the being.
Yes.
So this being comes from a clan, the Bataung clan. These are your Southern Sothos. Now, when I introduce this being, Sesotho ke re ke tshwanetse gore ke itsho. NgesiZulu bathi mele uzisho. Ntate nna ke Motaung wa Hahlalele. Ke wa Mantita Morapedi, ke motho wa Ntjahadi, ke motho wa Lebeslagogo. Teng rona Bataung ha re bona madi a motho wa Rotary ke madi a nonyane. Ke Mosotho ya tala. Ntate mogolo re tlile kwana Lesotho Maseru a feta ilo reka qwaqwa ilo reka kwana Alexandra. Jwale ena Tau, it grew up in Deep Kloof in Zone 1 in the Basotho section.
Wow.
Now, when you ask who is Lesego Tau, I am Hlalele from the Bataung clan.
Wonderful.
Now, Lesego Tau is an identity name for you to know that is Lesego, but the being in me comes from the Hlalele clan in the Bataung clan.
The origin.
Ndati.
Wonderful.
So I was born in Deep Kloof, Zone 1 in Baragwana. The hospital, the big hospital, one of the big hospitals in the world. Now, and you'll understand during the riots and the Inca at the times then, there was this thing that a boy child was needed by Inca for you to be used as young soldiers for some of the riots. So myself and the brothers, we were then taken in hiding in Petersburg. So we had to go and be nurtured by the old lady in Petersburg, because Soweto was still rough back then. And remember, they still wanted a boy child. So our parents took us and we grew up in Petersburg.
Where exactly in Polokwane?
Mostorlos. Do you know Mostorlos?
Oh, that's my home. You're talking about Makulu Tamara, greatest district of Skukune. Jane First is my home. You came. You should have come and look.
After it was a bit settled now.
Yes.
And that's when now we started our primary schooling right here in Deep Close, and I also did my high schooling.
You know, my brother, this is a blessing in disguise. I always say to people that South Africa is a minefield. You have to exploit. And if you happen to grow up in rural and learn to wake up in the morning and go and look for the cattle,
those disciplines, yes.
And then you happen to go to a boarding school, and then you happen to live in a township, and then you happen to live in a suburb. Now, when you induct a foreigner about South Africa, we are guaranteed that you will do a real job.
That's very true, because you understand all these balances of the types of lives that you have lived. You know the bundus, you know the township life, you know the suburban life. So you understand that balance.
Yeah. And if you happen to be very lucky that your parents happen to be somewhere living in the real farms, you know, the farm life is completely different to all the lives I've mentioned. Where you plow on a tractor and you live in the plot and you work for bus so and so. Now you know
that is actually life. That is what I mean when I say, when I tell my young people this at a time to say you haven't experienced life, because I understand that in the rural areas you cannot eat something that you did not labor for, and that is practically what I mean.
Yes.
If you say at home there's no food, that means you did not labor for it.
Yeah.
Now, if nkgono kapa boko we did not go
You know, you are taking me far back now, my brother. You know, growing up, the old grandmother will wake up and make fire, and then go to the river and fetch water, and then we'll sit in the round tables. Around the round table there was loala. You know loala? That's where you grind the mealie to make the corn to make mealie. While the boil of water, the water is boiling, she will be busy grinding corn, and out of that corn is mealie, and then when the pot is boiling, she'll take the first mealie and then make that first stage of making pap.
Look at the preparation process.
You understand?
Now, with us here in the townships, is that if you want water, you just open a tap. That side is literally, if there's no water at home, that means somebody did not pick up the bucket and go for the water in the river.
That's why we used to call you Vanavantano more. We say, hey man, the guys in the rural say, listen, you know, we don't fetch water in the house. We don't press the button and the air comes and the light comes.
No,
but anyway, we are not glorifying those struggles, by the way. We are just saying that that is unfortunately what South Africa is made up of, and there's always many aspects of South Africa, and we are proud of what we have survived, and we can. But that history needs to be told. But anyway, we are digressing.
But those were very necessary. You know, those were very necessary. It cannot be maybe a sad narrative. is not a sad narrative at all. They were very necessary for us to understand some of the disciplines of this life.
Yes.
Because we still have other people in the rural, they still enjoy and prefer this life.
Yes.
Because they have seen and experienced, city life, and they told themselves that, no, this I cannot handle. They prefer that method of life.
Yes.
Even though others can say they are a bit compromised in the rural, but they still feel that this is a way of life for them. And I applaud that, because everyone has a preference. They prefer to live that way. And in the city life, we prefer to live in this method, although it is quite faster in the city. But I believe in preferences. If they want to live like that, let it be. But we're still in maybe how I grew up. I'm the second born child of Elizabeth and Muhumuji. So I'm the second boy child that was a very highly addictive gambler in my youth days.
Yes.
I did a lot of gambling. You talk of copy dice. I used to play copy dice.
Really?
I used to play Madaisi. I was introduced at a young age at a casino, So risk was my feeling growing up at a young age because I never understood the feeling of growing up without money. I grew up at a pub. My mother was a shopping queen, I grew up in a pub and we were taught to sell at a very young age. So I liked the feeling of having money. So if I sold at home, we were selling beers, quarters and other food items. If business was not good for that day and maybe the old lady did not give us some tip, I would also find ways of making money because I couldn't sleep well if there was no money in my pocket, So I would go out and gamble and look at other methods of how to generate income. The little money that I made from gambling, I would go and buy some merchandise at China City to resell in the township. So selling has always been my thing. I love asking people for their money, but in a good way. That is selling for me. I'm asking you for your money, but I'm giving you value. So we were taught that in the pub. Always I would look at how my mom is doing things. He would always say, "What can you?" When she wants to introduce a new item in the business, she will ask us as boys in the house and say, "What is it that we can introduce that can make people to voluntarily bring their money so that we give them value?"
Wow.
So I would always come up with these ideas to say, "Hey, Mamzo, if you are selling cigarettes, when I'm gambling there, I see people smoking dacha and they use this thing called Razor. Why can't you sell this? Because people use a lot of this thing." So he should give us an opportunity to come up with ideas and items that can make people to voluntarily come to our house and give us their money in exchange of value. So at times when we prepare kota, I would ask my mom, why do they always have to come and buy kota at home? Why can't they just send someone to buy kota and leave? We'll take it there at their house. So we'll start delivering now. If somebody buys kota, we'll take it to their house. So now we become the one-stop shop at home. And now I used to love the idea of selling, and I used to love the idea of always having money at home because I saw that selling is a very powerful skill that can never take you down the poverty drain. So the whole idea of selling, I'm in love with it.
Wow.
Me being a gambler, I got a lot of coaching now and mentoring. I was shifted a bit after tasting some prison cells.
I see. So you had no limits how you go out about going extra mile to make money, and it landed you in prison.
Very true.
Wow.
Very true. Because now I'm going to tell you a very sad story, but we have to share this because remember the interview is about the journey.
Yes.
The more I made money with gambling, now it never became enough. Now we had these older brothers in the township that they taught, they ended up teaching us how to do shoplifting.
Yes.
Now the situation became worse. These guys are saying to us, when you gamble, you make less money. Let's teach you how to make quick cash, real cash. And then we started doing shoplifting. They taught us how to do shoplifting. And most of the boys at that time, they went under serious trouble. Some were taken to juvenile prison. Some had criminal records. I was one of those fortunate to receive quick mentorship by some of the older timers in the township that gave us guidance to say, boys, the route that you're taking is going to compromise in the future. Focus on your studies, go to school, and somehow in the near future, you will see light. Stop what you're doing, because I have a very good way of listening very quickly. I took the advice and I stopped all this nonsense. I focused on my books, and God willingly, and fortunately, so I was able to crack my matric, and I was geared up to go for tertiary studies.
Amen to that. That's a beautiful piece of information. And you know, when we grow up as children, everything goes. I mean, you might have been addicted to gambling. I was addicted to football. And it was always conflicting with the things I needed to do at home. Kettle will be lost because there's a game. And I'll play the game. Then at the end of the day, then I said, oh my goodness, now the only license to get back home is to come home with the kettle, and the kettle is not here. And then now, because I lost the kettle, I'm not allowed to go to school tomorrow morning because I have to go and find the kettle. So you live a life of conflict, and you are forever confused. So addiction is not only in the form of what you did. It's anything else that is done and is not put in perspective. And there's nobody to help you to balance this many. Remember, you are young. Everything is new. You don't even know why you were born. Yeah? And you don't even think that there is you don't even think that somebody has to worry about you having something to eat.
True.
So that's why I always say that early childhood is not only about a kindergarten. Early childhood development about all those stages to a point where you are able to reason out for yourself.
They all come to play. They all come to play.
But when you look back, psychologists will tell you that many of us, who we are today, the struggles we're going through, the successes we're achieving, you can trace it back to the first 15 years of your life.
Those are formative years.
Those are formative years, and majority of us, we didn't have a control of that. If you didn't have parents who were really, or elders in the village, who saw it coming and they say, hey, wait. When we grew up in the village, they used to say that if you don't bring this child in line, he's going to be our problem. Because they understood that no society will disown you. Even if you go and be a criminal and you go to jail, when you come back to the village.
That's what I liked about the rural areas. There is no elder that will let you to be led astray.
Yeah.
But now in the city, when you reprimand a child, it is always deemed as abuse and not minding your own business. That's why you see most of our young people being so distorted. Yeah. Because when you try and guide, even the family is protecting the wrongdoing of this teenager. You know, I'm very grateful if I look at all the things that I went through, some that are still evident in my youth days, merging them with now, I can still say I'm still a risk taker and I still love selling.
Beautiful.
And I always have thoughts of how to generate extra income. Beautiful. Now, growing up, I took those lessons. As much as I was a risk taker on something that was distorted, those lessons were now reversed to a positive one to say, yes, I took risk then, but it was a bit distorted. But I was also coached and trained that there is good risk that you can still take that can propel you to becoming a better person. So I'm a very much risk taker, and I love selling, the idea of selling, so that I can always think of other ideas of generating extra income.
Beautiful. Let's hold it there. When we come back, I want us to talk about how you completed your high school and transition into university, because this was beautiful foundation. Nothing is perfect on this world. And
wonderful.
And that your story said it all. We'll be back.